Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My seasons are over. Hi, everyone. Mystic soon, everybody. Hi, everyone.
It was their media day today.
Yeah, of course it was. I
got some free time this week.
Yeah, you do. You got
Schedule
4 games
opened
out of
up.
it. Yeah, you got 4 days out of it. 4 games.
Yep.
I have a lot to say about it. I'm going to start there. I'll get to all the Commanders stuff.
Oh, wow.
I'm
You're going to start Caps
I'm going to start
over the
Caps.
Commanders.
Because I'll do the Commanders draft at 4 o'clock because I got
Okay.
a lot to say about that, too.
Okay.
Very
All right.
happy about that. But, I'm going to just say my piece now, which is I'm not, there's good and bad here.
Before we get to the Commanders, I just want to say I'm wearing like an RFK shirt today. 2 people wanted to talk draft with me just on the walk to work. We're back. We're so back.
So I hang out in Bethesda a lot. I get lunch in Bethesda.
That's where
a
I
lot.
got talked to. Yes.
Yeah, for anyone who will know this, by the famous parking lot by the Apple Store, if you go in this area,
Yes.
there is a homeless guy who's like the nicest guy on earth, and I see him multiple times a week. And whenever I'm wearing a Commanders thing, he always asks me about it.
Yeah.
And so today I was walking by him, and I go, "What'd you think of the draft?" On and on.
Yeah.
Daniels. Sandestrill,
Yep.
loves
Yep.
Sandestrill, loves Daniels.
Yep.
Everybody's talking about it. It's good. We're back. We're back.
Just saying. Yes.
We're back. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the floor on Daniels is we're exciting.
Correct.
The ceiling is I don't know, which
right.
is the fun part of
Correct.
it. I
Yeah,
don't know. Like that's the hope part of it that he's going to be great, you
Right.
know. But the floor is we're going to be really fun to watch with him because he's capable of doing so many things. So it's going to be. I'm very happy, and I'll go through the whole day 2, day 3 of the draft at 4 because I'm very happy with most of what happened, and I'll just leave it at this, which is there was no way. I've been talking about this for months. There was no way they were going to check every box off.
Yeah, of course.
They couldn't.
Yeah. Right.
Even with all the draft capital they had, they couldn't. So we all know they need a tackle. Like that's not, no secret. Like
Right.
they do. And I'm willing to hope that the 3rd round player they got from TCU will become that, but he's a 3rd round pick. Like I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him. So they got to go get a tackle. Like that's the one thing that's really left that seemingly has to happen before we get to training camp.
Right. Yeah.
Then we'll see what else it
Yep.
is. All right, let's get to the Caps,
Sure.
whose season ended last night in a sweep to the Rangers. The Rangers were by far, not close, the better team. You disagree with that?
Last night, I would say the Caps were slightly better on 5-on-5, but per usual, the special teams was what tilted the whole entire game.
Okay, so I got good and bad to talk about.
Okay.
Okay,
There is good and bad. So.
Yeah, like the good part. I'm going to do the bad part first because I want to end on the good part because I think largely this is.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, this is yes. Did you get the talking points? Because I'd rather you talk about the good stuff first. Anyway, don't talk to Louise about it. She's probably happy we got swept.
Ted, did you watch Brad last night?
Oh, Ted's feeling good about that one.
I mean,
that
there's
no
one
trade
thing
clause.
One thing to feel good about, it's that.
No, you did it. Now you saddled them with it.
Yeah.
All right, so it ends last night. Let me start with. Oh boy, I don't want to be hot takey here.
Uh-oh.
But I do have. I do have some things to say.
Okay.
I have some things to say, and let's go start with the coach.
All right.
I like him a lot. I love him.
here
Actually,
we go.
I
Here we
really
go,
do.
Jim. Yeah.
I think you're gonna agree with me on a lot of this if you really think about it.
Okay.
But like I like him. I think he was put into a very difficult situation. He had to thread a needle with the team that he had. A lot of older veterans, a lot of rough things happening, like with Backstrom and things like that, that were kind of foreseen and kind of not. And the goaltender situation didn't work out very well, and they started really slow. And Ovi was bad early in the year, and then they predictably had a lot of injuries through the year, and he had to incorporate young guys and move them around and shift them around. And so largely, we'll start with. I think he did a really good job this year, largely.
Yep.
I do. Now, when we get to the playoffs, though, and all of these things exist here in the playoffs, this is a mishmash of a team. They had really bad luck with Sandin and Jensen at the end of the year, so they were really undermanned on the back line. Like, the excuses are built in and real, and I'm willing to hear them out on this. But they were unbelievably sloppy throughout this entire series. They had brutal giveaways for goals in multiple games, including 30 seconds into the game last night where Jensen just handed a puck.
Correct.
And it's 1-0 Rangers.
Yep.
Ovechkin had a ghastly turnover in one of the games up in New York where he didn't even look like he was ready for the puck and then just handed it away, and it's a shorthanded goal.
Yes.
Right, that happens the other way. It's happened multiple times. And they had a couple of other flubs that were almost really embarrassing through the course of this series where Lindgren fell asleep for a second, nearly scored on himself.
Yep.
A couple of others, like really, really sloppy play. The power play was awful. Like, not like, oh, they were effective and just couldn't beat Shesterkin. Largely, they didn't even get real opportunities.
Yep.
It started in game one, getting 3 opportunities in the first period and not scoring, to last night where they had multiple power plays where they couldn't generate a shot or a decent chance. And at times, couldn't even enter the zone cleanly.
Right.
It was really bad. They gave up a shorthanded goal. And I would just largely say the sloppiness, the special teams being really bad, there's no way you're winning in the playoffs that way. So some of this, as much as I love Carberry, that's coaching.
Right.
It is. And like, this team was not as prepared as the other team, clearly. It showed up early, too. I mentioned this last week when that first game when Ovechkin was shooting the puck from the top of the zone in the power play. And I'm like, he's never there. Why is he there?
Right.
Why is he shooting from there? What is Laviolette doing to get them to get out of what is a normal positioning for them? I think they got out-coached here, and that's hard to say because this is their previous coach. But that team was so far more buttoned up than our team. We were already at a disadvantage with all the injuries we had, and the goalie matchup, I love Lindgren, but it's tilted hard. Like, that's an all-pro goaltender. We have a guy who's had a career year, okay?
Sure.
It's different.
Yeah.
So, like, this was not set up well to start with. The only way, though, that they were going to pull any of this off was they could not make the types of ghastly mistakes that they made game after game. And then when they did get opportunity, I mean, I went into the series going, they can't go like the way they're going to the end of the year where it's low event hockey, but they're not getting any power plays. How are they going to score? They got plenty of power plays and couldn't score.
That's right.
That's on the coaching staff.
Sure.
Like, I'm sorry, it is. And I love Carberry, and I'm all for the built-in excuses of all the things that happened, and I didn't expect them to win this series. But, like, the way they went out, that team was far more buttoned up than our team. I don't know what happened with Ovechkin, but he looked like early season Ovechkin, disengaged at times, non-factor, to the point where he wasn't even playing very much last night.
Well, so this is one to your overarching point. There's a reason why they were the 1 seed and the Caps were the 8 seed.
Like I said, I'm willing to. The built-in excuses are fair. I'm not dumping on him saying he blew the series, but he didn't put them in the position to really pull anything off, and that's my complaint here about
The
it.
personnel, though, for the Rangers has a buy-in to their PK and defensive style that is completely different than they're Boston-esque when it comes to that stuff. And also, they have Chris Kreider, who is like might as well be the anti-capital. The guy tips pucks, he gets shorthanded chances, he's on the PK, he can score anyway. He's the anti-capital, really, when it boils down to it. Not to mention, they scored the most shorthanded goals in the league. So I'm not shocked they scored a couple on the Caps, too. Yes, they were egregious, especially the Ovechkin one. I think it was game 1 or 2.
The turnovers were just terrible.
Yes, but I think that's what happens is the Rangers are just relentless, and the Capitals, Carberry said it last night, and I think it was more indicative of the whole entire team, not just Ovechkin, because they asked Ovechkin, hey, are you hurt? He said, nope, I'm fine. He just had a crappy series. I think that's the exact thing he said. When they asked Carberry about it, Carberry said, I think that run where he scored the 20 goals or whatever it was, he was burnt out. That's literally what he said. He said it took everything for him to go on that run.
They've been in the playoffs for 2 months.
Right. But exactly.
Because 2 months ago, we were like, they're not going to make the playoffs because there's too many people ahead of them.
Now, to your point here, this is where I had a problem with Carberry starting in game 3, really. You saw that the young guys and Dylan Strome were the ones that were driving play the whole time. And I just said, you've got to put them out there. You got to double shift and whatever. It was too little too late last night. You needed to go perfectly and do that. And instead, Jensen has that turnover, and now you're not playing Ovechkin, which is fine. I agree with it, but you're doing it in game 4. Like, they needed to have a little more urgency the way that they lost those first 2 games coming home and going.
There was a little bit of Ron here where you're like, it's plain as day.
Yes,
like, we can all see it, but you're not acting on it.
You and
it's too late once you finally act. You're 2 in a hole before you've acted on it.
Right. Like I kept saying to you, I love Connor McMichael, but he's stuck on a line with Ovechkin. Well, what happened last night? there's Hendricks Lapierre, and he's stuck on a line with Ovechkin.
Yeah.
But he scores the prettiest goal in the entire series last night. Like, you had, I don't want to say you put Ovechkin on the fourth line, but like you might as well have, because you needed to play McMichael, Protas, Lapierre, Strome. Those should have been the guys that were out there the entirety of the time. And, what did happen was the defense was better because John Carlson wasn't playing 30 minutes. At least having Jensen and Sandin out there, they relieved a little bit. So the defense looked a little bit better, but I just, you had players you had to ride and you didn't. And that to me is where I was kind of like, you had to have a perfect series just to elongate this thing, and instead you're getting swept out.
I just, in watching them the last couple of games, especially the home games, it just kept hitting me. I'm like, this is a rookie head coach.
Yeah, I agree.
It was obvious.
Yeah.
Like, the team didn't meet the moment. They were making massive mistakes. They already struggle to score. Giving goals away every game is a recipe to lose.
Yeah.
They're not capable. And then when they got to special teams, they were beyond ineffective. Like, the power plays were pointless. Like, they very rarely even got a really good opportunity. And that goaltender's too good.
Yep.
Like, if you're not getting real opportunities on him, there was one last night they had an incredible opportunity. Alexiev got what was pass of the series from Carlson, this backhanded Magic Johnson across the blue line during a power play that sprung him into the middle of the ice. And he hit, it's just one-on-one.
Yep.
And he fired a puck literally into the guy's chest.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't even, so that one, like, I don't blame Carberry for that, but it was one of those, like, oh my God.
A little bit more, please, yeah.
Like, you're not beating him that way. Like, you hit it literally into him. He didn't even have to make a real save. He was probably surprised, like, okay. Like, it hit him, like, literally in the chest. So they don't have the finishers they used to have. Okay. They struggle to score. They have a lot of injuries. They're juggling things around.
Sure.
A lot of young and experienced players. But it is on the coach to adapt. And all of that, like, the messiness of it screamed to me, you were not a buttoned-up operation in all of this. And while I've got all the excuses for you not to be playing beyond this series, I don't think you should have gone out like that.
Sure.
And so I'm going to go with that was his rookie go-around in the playoffs, too. And because it just, you know how much I love him. I'm like, this guy is everything. But he got exposed in this series pretty badly, even if they were the underdog. And in hockey, typically, even the underdog stretches it if you're a good team to 6-7 games because the games are all so close. And it just takes the right bounce in this one thing or this one call. And then all of a sudden, you steal a game and things get real tight in these series. There wasn't much of that here. And their giveaways were just awful. And when they went down 3-2 in the third, I felt no feeling whatsoever that they were going to come back at all. Like, I didn't think they were kind of capable of it. They looked disorganized at times. Power play was bad. And so I kind of thought back to the beginning of the season where we were like, whoa, because they were getting run early, like bad. Like, it looked disorganized. And he adjusted. And that's why, like, in the end, I'll get to the good part of this. He did adjust. His rookie year started really weird.
Correct.
Then they had some emotional things occur, and then they had what we thought would happen. Backstrom can't play, started to get some injuries.
Didn't think it would happen that fast, though. We didn't think it was going to be 2 weeks into the season.
It's not his fault that Kemper was not playing well to the point where he had to make a switch, basically.
Yep.
And I thought he handled all of this really well, and they did circle the wagons, and they did play really hard, and they did play a style that afforded them the opportunity to be competitive on most nights. So I want to credit him for all of that.
Yeah.
Then we got here, and he looked like he got rooked.
I would say this.
Like, the Rangers looked like the way better team, buttoned up, not making mistakes like that, goading us into penalties.
Yeah.
Like, Rebke would goad somebody into a penalty and then wouldn't, like, veteran enough to know I'm not going to give you the 2 minutes back. We looked disorganized, sloppy, and I think this was a first real learning lesson for the coach here. Like, he got rooked.
All of that,
series.
though, does translate to the Rangers are way more skilled and way more fast. And so when they are fast, you are playing literal catch up the entire time.
But they had the most points in the league. So, I didn't think they were winning this series. But the way they had fought to get to this point, I thought the series would go a little differently. Yeah. We threw up on ourselves too many times. And that's why I look at the coach and go, hey, man, like, when it's one time, fine. But when it happens at every single game, or you can't figure out how to fix your power play, that's on you. Or not shifting the lineups around to be more effective. That's kind of on you.
Right. I'm glad you brought up Rempe because There is one player, like Ovechkin, yes, it's been at length, we've talked about it, how he clearly left it all out there in the regular season. So he had nothing left in the postseason. Oshie, we've been around the block many a time about that. Strome was good, didn't score though. So there's some criticism there.
He looked the part.
Agree.
He was one of the few.
Like you and I were talking literally the whole series about
stage wasn't big enough, wasn't that big for him.
Yeah, and
I was happy with him.
Correct.
Yeah.
And McMichael looked great, and you and I said all LaPierre needs to do is finish one, and he finished one last night.
He's their one speed guy. He's the one spark plug. He just couldn't finish. He finally did, and I'm like, oh man, I even texted you. I'm like, oh my God, he finished the goal.
I was like,
thank
floodgates
God.
are open if they actually went on. There is one guy that I think needs to be called out here, and I don't mind doing it on the air, and it's Tom Wilson. He let his team down this whole series. He was getting goaded by Rempe.
He took bad penalties.
He was taking his own bait, and he didn't. And like, here's the thing with Wilson: love him, plays hard. He's like kind of like Oshie. Like, you know you're gonna get everything out of that guy. But if he's not scoring, there's not like you shouldn't be goaded into that crap that Rempe was doing, and he was getting. It's one thing to happen games 1 or 2 up there in New York, and you get caught up in the intermission stuff. But like last night. Dude, like you're the pseudo captain at this point. You're getting goaded into this stuff in a game you have to win, and you take these stupid penalties, and it's at the end of a period where you know your team falls apart at the end of the period, and they score. And so I think Wilson had a terrible series, and that was the first time he was playing in the playoffs since really when? Like 2020, the bubble? Because remember he got hurt the first shift of that Florida series, so like he hadn't even played. I mean, it's been a while for him, but I think out of everyone that we've named, there's an excuse built in, but there's not one for him. Like that was
he was
sloppy,
out of control.
Yeah, it was a sloppy. Out of control is a good way to put it. It was a sloppy series by him, and he's supposed to be kind of the like, I don't want to say calming presence, but he's supposed to be the guy that drags people into the fight, so to speak. And I thought it was sloppy by him this whole series that you were letting the kid who's new to the NHL beat you at your own game. And Rempe, we knew it by game 1. Wasn't going to fight any of you guys. So what are you even wasting your breath and chirping at him for? And he knew it last night too, Rempe did. The second they were up, he's like, I'm not going to fight any of you guys. I'm not going to give you any of this energy. Yeah. And there was Wilson wasting his breath and wasting his energy on him. I thought that was really, to me, the most disappointing part about the whole series. And I know guys have bad series all the time, but for me, where you needed everything to go perfect, that to me was the most disappointing part.
This was really it was bad. I mean, it was a bad series. Like they played a better team. The goaltender matchup was so heavily tilted towards the other team. They're not nearly as injured, and they're just faster.
Yeah.
Across the board. So I didn't think we'd win.
Correct.
But the way we had played, I thought we were going to steal a game or two and scare them. And it didn't happen. And to your point about the late penalties, twice, down in the third period, they took a penalty with under 3 minutes to go.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Last night's was just like the dagger of all daggers, but yeah.
Right, because that happened, and you're like, well, that's kind of fitting, actually.
Yeah.
It actually kind of
You're gonna have 40 seconds to do this, yeah.
Well, it's you're killing yourselves, which is why, to me, it goes back to Carberry a little bit here. It all, like, Wilson shouldn't have been doing the things he did.
Yep.
The errors felt like some guys just, I don't know, fell asleep during the game at times. The lineups were hard to describe. The power play was bad, ineffective, wasn't even getting them good chances. They gave up shorthanded goals off of terrible turnovers. That's the coach.
Right.
Like that falls in your lap here a little bit. Like it's too much to overlook. And I'm willing, because I love him, I'm willing to hear out he was a rookie coach against, like we talked a lot about Laviolette the last couple of years because he was our coach. That guy knows what he's doing.
Yep.
This is 6th team he's taken to the playoffs. He's won cups before. Like this guy knows what he's doing. He's got a Lamborghini up there.
Right.
He's driving it. And guess what? Like they didn't look like a team that was going to be goaded into anything. Mm-hmm. They looked buttoned up. Their power play was effective at times. They took advantage of the mistakes. And once they got leads, we were dead on arrival. And Shesterkin just was not tested enough to even warrant it wasn't like he made 45 saves in some game and he made 1 or 2 a game. That's it. Like, if you looked at the shots on goal, one, there weren't that many because that's how they play now. But secondarily, if you were like, what are the prime scoring chances out of those shots on net? It's such a tiny percentage of them. They never felt like they were even threatening to score most of the games.
I know you were doing the draft thing on Friday for day 2 of the draft, but they lost 3-1 on Friday, and their one goal was on a mess up by Shesterkin. Like he just misplayed the puck.
Yeah.
Other than that, they would have gotten shut out in game 3.
That's right.
They wouldn't have scored at all. Like. they were lucky to get a goal in that game, literally, because Shesterkin messed that one up. So, yeah, their scoring was just way down throughout the whole entire thing, too. The one thing I'll say, though, is unlike Ron, I think Spencer's going to learn from this.
That's what I'm saying.
Learn from his mistakes.
That's why I go back to at the beginning of the year was really bad.
They pivoted really fast. Yeah, fast.
He kept the room together, and he dealt with a very unusual locker room with a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
So, he had to thread a needle all year, and I thought he did. Them getting to the playoffs, to me, is a success. It really is. That's why I want to end on the good. I think it's a success. But this first go-around in the playoffs felt very much like the beginning of the year, and we had a rookie head coach, and it was obvious.
Yeah.
He was completely outmatched. On the power play, we had the people we're accustomed to scoring at certain slots in the wrong part of the ice. Something's up.
Right.
They're goading you into doing things that make you uncomfortable. Then they get a penalty. There were a couple calls early I thought should have gone against the Rangers that didn't. They kind of turned a couple of games.
Officiating the whole series was
I agree, but
garbage.
when we retaliated, we ended up being punished for it, and we got goaded into it. That was a professional hockey operation. It's been around the block, and we looked like one that was first timers, and that's the weird part of it because a number of guys on the ice are, but a lot of them aren't actually, and that's I think what was disappointing about it. I was telling my Rangers friends before, I'm like, you can't kill us. You guys are better than us, but we stick around. That was kind of embarrassing, the way that they kind of collectively played. And I put that at the feet of the coach here, and hopefully he'll learn from it because I'm not calling for anything. I can't wait to get him back. Let's see what the lineup looks like. Yeah. They got a lot to do in the offseason and think about. I think this roster is going to look a little different, however they can mess with it. We got to figure out Backstrom. What's that going to be? Oshie, it's noted, was the last person on the ice.
Yep.
He's got 1 year left. He's barely been making it through
seasons. Played with a broken hand
seasons.
last night too.
Yeah, I think he was acting like it might have been the last time, so he probably has a decision to make.
Right.
He's got a contract, so he's got a decision to make.
Right.
But it looks like he was seriously thinking about that. Just if you just go by the way he was acting, it was like he took a little lap for one final little look-see. So that gives you the feeling not unlike Jason Kelce, he might be done here.
Just a point that we haven't even gotten to because we've mentioned Kemper. Kemper's got 3 years left on his deal. Charlie Lindgren's going to the last year of his deal, so the goaltending situation is going to get weird next year. The other part is to go off Tom Wilson one more time. Yeah. His contract extension kicks in next year. He's got 7 years left. Yeah. Already I'm kind of bugging out that contract a little bit. He's 30 years old. So all I'm saying is off of this last playoff series, I don't think anyone should be judged on their worst moments. But all of a sudden, you're supposed to be the veteran. You didn't act like one. I hope you bounce back next year. He only had 18 goals this year. $6.5 million for the next 7 years is a lot of money to pay a glorified captain when Ovechkin is done. So that's one where I think it's just red circle on that one. I was the first one to say Kemper was not right at the beginning of the year. I will circle Tom Wilson as you need to have a bounce back going into next season.
Listen, I was hopeful about Kemper when they signed him. I didn't like it. I thought it was too much money and too much time. He had played on a Stanley Cup champion who was the best offensive team in the league.
Right.
And
had the best defenseman in the league, too.
And when you're up 4-1 in a lot of games, your stats look good.
That's right. Yeah.
Look real good. And then he got here, and all of a sudden, he's not on a team that scores like that, and he's been exposed. They got 3 years left. I saw Elliot Friedman say something like they might try to move the good luck with that.
Sure.
Good luck getting someone to take because it's 3 years left. It's a lot of money.
You can do the old, there's been trades in the NHL, though, where you attach a draft pick and send them on their way. I mean,
Maybe
that happens.
Listen, I love what Lindgren did. I don't see him as a high-end number one.
He's not the
goaltender.
goaltender of the future. Trust me.
No, he's not Shesterkin. He's not going to turn into that. It's obvious. So there's a hole there. They've got to get an answer to that. They may not be able to. Backstrom, they have to figure out. Oshie seems like he has a decision to make. Carlson and Ovechkin will be back, obviously.
They get half of Kuznetsov's contract, at least. So.
Get half of Kuznetsov's contract.
On Carlson, we haven't really talked about him. I thought he had a great bounce back year.
Yes.
I think
he was outstanding.
I think 2 years ago, we were kind of
I thought he was washed.
Same. I thought he was really finished, and he stepped up in this year in a way that I didn't see coming, offensively and defensively down the stretch. So I just good on Carlson. I think John on our broadcast has said over this past season that he's played himself into a Hall of Famer, and I think I kind of agree off of this past season that he essentially stepped up in a way that I don't think anyone saw coming. And then you're talking about a guy who's 34, 35 years old, playing 30 minutes in the playoffs, and actually wasn't a liability. He had a mistake here and there, but you're on the ice so much, one's going to pop up. And I thought out of all of the Capitals that really stepped up this year, Carlson deserves so much credit because you're right. He looked bad 2 seasons ago. And
He looked washed to me.
It was like, oh no, but he really stepped up in a huge way this season.
The only other thing that, thinking about the future for them is obviously they're still going to be carrying a lot of these big contracts with older players. Yeah. We've got to get through the record. But some of them are starting to fall off. Let's see how they handle Backstrom and Oshie, and then maybe there is something to be done with Kemper where they can get out of some of it. Maybe. I doubt it, but
you could maybe do the same thing with Kuzi, like you eat half the salary or something.
Yeah, the other issues that I see and foresee and that I'm worried about moving forward with, I'm very excited about the younger players. I'm happy they're playing. None of them are profiling the ability to be volume scorers.
Yep.
I'm not seeing a lot of that, and I guess I've been spoiled with Ovechkin and Backstrom and these people that score a lot of goals.
Sure.
And over, I see guys who can't finish. Mm-hmm. So will that change? Maybe. Will this guy Miro become that for them?
Right.
Hopefully. Yeah. But that's the concern here is that they may get younger, they may get faster, but who's their guys that are filling it up? Because I don't see a lot of it. And if Strome, who I think is a very good player, is your leading scorer, you're in trouble.
Right.
You are. You need to have a couple of alpha scorers to actually be good. And I'm not sure I see who that torch is being passed to. And that's what's concerning me too.
So the difference, at least here, though, is I think in years past, the depth chart's been stuck. You had Ovechkin, Oshie, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, insert 2 top 6 forwards here, right? And then you get the likes of Burakovsky, Vrana, those types. They're stuck on the third line. This coach ain't going to play that, which means McMichael, we saw it. He was playing top line. Hendricks Lapierre was playing with Ovechkin. Yeah. He's giving these guys the chances they need to develop into getting that scoring touch, which I think is the difference between this. Because they're not stuck. I don't blame Laviolette or blame Trotz or blame Todd Reardon for not playing Vrana over Backstrom on the top line. You can't play that game with the veterans here in that aspect. So they're going to get the chance to do that. Lapierre scoring last night was a huge step in the development. The fact that he scored that goal and finished had to be a huge sigh of relief for everyone to go, okay,
he's one of the guys that has the most juice. I've been watching him going, right. There were a couple times on power plays. I'm like, put him out there.
Right. To your point though, the guy to look for is playing in Boston College next season. Ryan Leonard is the star.
Right.
I mean, he is.
And maybe Miro will be too.
I think, for sure.
He's got this crazy shot.
Mm-hmm.
The type of shot,
physical too. I think he just needs
big,
to get...
he's physical. I think if he gets his sea legs, I feel good about him because he's got that crazy shot. He even scored a couple of crazy goals late in the year from weird angles because his shot is so powerful. So I'm hopeful about him. I'm hopeful about Lapierre, and I'm hopeful, about Leonard. But we're a couple years away.
Probably
he's playing in college next year.
One, I would hope. But
then
he
comes up, and we'll have to see. It's going to be a 2 to 3 years before we see what he really looks like. And that's fine because at that point, it will be time to truly pass the torch.
That's right.
And we can allow him, if he's going to be the star, to walk in and be the star because at that point, we'll be past the Ovechkin era. But they are still stuck in this weird middle ground. I'll be interested to see what they do. And I hope that they don't go out and spend too much on veterans that get them locked into something.
Max Pacioretty.
Well, at least
that's a one-year
deal. Right.
Still.
I'm all for the one-year deal stuff if you think it's going to help you. What I don't want to see them do is go out and go, well, we want to try to win, so we're going to go pay all this money. And then a year later, we're going, well, we're stuck with that contract for 3 more years when you're trying to shepherd in new.
Though your point to Miro is kind of look at Protas. Protas last year got his first significant playing time, didn't have a scoring touch, got his time in the NHL, learned how to be a pro, no pun intended there. And then this season is the year that he kind of popped off. I look for Miro to do the same thing. Played a bunch down the stretch here. Look for him to make a jump next year, probably a scoring touch that develops.
Yeah.
He'll also, same thing, won't be stuck on the depth chart. He's going to get more ice time. He's going to be top 6. These guys are all going to get the chance to score next year is what I'm saying. So hopefully he develops into that point.
All right. We'll see what they do. We'll follow them. Take a quick break. I want to talk about the Suns going out. Brad, watch the show ESPN 630, Sports Capital. I texted my friend Brad last night to see if he was sad. I don't know why I'm enjoying them getting swept.
Oh, I am. No. It's easy because the guy never.
I like KD. I'm not a KD hater. I like KD.
No. I agree.
No, I like Booker too. I like Brad. Everybody likes Brad.
No, Brad though. We've been through this conversation a million times though. Brad would do the thing where he'd go, oh, well, like no one wants to play defense. And then they'd put him on the number one guy, and he wouldn't want to play defense either. He took no accountability ever.
No one wants to play defense, including me.
Well, right. And like,
say that part.
When it was Wizards, bruh, and then they went 10-2 or whatever they did to start that season, Brad did the whole like, oh, well, it's not me. And it's like, dude, you're the captain in the room. Mm-hmm. Everybody, it's Lord of the Flies. Yeah. It's your fault this is happening. And it was like, oh,
you the leader of the team?
Oh, well, everyone was worried about their contracts.
Yeah.
Well, you're not. So why aren't you trying to calm the waters here?
Yeah. Why don't you be the leader of the team?
Correct. And so seeing him foul out last night, by the way, with 9 points.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best because it's like, here it is. You have your wish. You're on a super team, and you are useless, essentially.
So, they're going to get just raked over the coals.
As they should.
Because I'm trying to think, like, who put something together like this real fast and won? Miami.
Yes,
Miami.
They also had the greatest player in the league at the time with 2 Hall of Famers.
Miami got LeBron and Bosh to go with
culture.
Wade.
I mean, culture was thrown in.
Well,
there
I think it's important. Like, this was a new owner.
Yep.
I saw Sam Amick, who's covered the league forever, wrote a piece about them. And, like, one of his sources with the Sun says, this place is Looney Tunes, man. Every day's crazy.
Oh, no.
Right, so, and the difference with the Heat is, and maybe that's where LeBron falls in discussions about greatest ever type of stuff, is that he did play within the context of a team.
Sure.
Is that Miami's owner had been around a long time. It's being run by Pat Riley, all-time legend. The coach is Eric Spoelstra. Whether LeBron likes him or not doesn't matter.
Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Yep.
Riley's got his back. As it's turned out, Spoelstra's turned out to be a very, very, very good coach that's been validated here by how often they're really good without primary star players on their team. Like, Jimmy Butler's really good. Adebayo's really good. They haven't had LeBron or Wade or Bosh in a while. They haven't had P1 A+ players on their team, and yet they're extremely competitive every single year, so much so that they overachieve often, which in the NBA doesn't happen that often. Yeah. Typically, the better teams just win, or the better talent just wins, not them. Like, they hang in there. So that's a huge difference. They did it, and it worked. The Warriors, I don't even classify it that way. They brought in Durant, but after they'd already won. They just made them better.
That's right.
It just made them better, but they'd already won with the homegrown guys that they had drafted.
Yeah.
It just made them a supernova for a couple of years. Who else has done this where they went? The Nets tried to with Durant and Irving, and that one's complicated because...
And Nets tried to before, too, with Pierce, Garnett.
Yes.
And I think they brought in one other player. I forget who it was at the time. They tried to do...
They tried to do it before.
Owner, too.
Different owner. That was the Russian guy. They tried to do that. And then that blew up on them. Yeah. Those guys were really old at that point. Yes. But that blew up on them pretty bad. And then they tried it again when they got... Well, Durant told them he was going there. And then they got Kyrie. And then they got Harden. And in the end, that one's complicated because COVID happened.
Yep.
And then people kept getting hurt.
Yes.
Remember? So Kyrie was unavailable for a while because of the New York rules. Yep. And then Durant got hurt. So it was kind of unfair to really judge it, but it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? This is hard to do, to just go grab a bunch of guys, throw them on a team and say, oh, now we're good. And then if you look at their team, and this was the complaint about them from the get-go, when they acquired Brad, they looked at the rest of the roster and they went, guys.
It was like literally Jags.
Guys.
Just guys, yeah.
They were like, I don't see a point guard. I don't see a center. Like, I don't see a bench. And those guys, specifically Durant, he doesn't play 82 games anymore.
Right.
So there are going to be a lot of nights where it's just 2 of them. Brad played 6 of the first 30.
Yep.
And so they, like, them missing any one of those 3 on any given night makes them beyond mortal. And then their bench is just a bunch of guys. And so it always looked messed up. This was like, this new owner got excited, asked to do something, made a bunch of trades, put together 3 star players together, and it didn't work. And it went sideways bad. And every, article today is, oh, by the way, if you didn't know, they don't have a first-round draft pick for 4 years.
Yep.
They almost have no second-round draft picks because of all these moves that they did. They have no draft equity for 5 years. So they're only way, they have 2 ways out here. They can hopefully find other players to fill in the blanks and somehow get better, or trade Booker or Durant.
Or both.
Or try to get rid of Beal. But as we learned, that's not easy to do because the no trade clause carried over. They're stuck with him.
Winger's laughing today.
He is lacking today. Well, when everybody got on him about the deal that he made, which ended up being Poole, is really what it ended up being.
Yeah, and some swaps, right? Wasn't it like they didn't get definitive picks, but I think they got swaps.
They got some swaps, and they got Chris Paul, and then they flipped Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And they got Poole, is what they got out of it. And I remember at the time, I didn't realize how unserious he was going to be for a while, but like he actually turned around by the end of the year.
Yeah.
But like when they got him, I went, you know what? Like they got a guy who's a volume scorer just like Beal for half the price.
That's right.
And he's a lot younger than him. So I'm happy with this. And maybe, this wasn't the plan for the Wizards, but, maybe they caught a break and just got a really good player. Took a while for him to kind of get with the program here, or the program to get with him. Mm-hmm. Really, I think Wes getting out and Brian Keefe coming and got the program with him. But now they're in the situation that everyone yelled about the second they did it. There was no reason why you give him a no-trade clause. Why would you do that?
That's
right?
Right?
But they did because Ted gave Lord Brad anything he wanted, and we're lucky we got out of it. And his agent somehow kept that in the deal, which the Suns, suckers, why would you do that?
Right.
Because bare minimum, if it doesn't go well, you could at least try to move him. You can't even do that now.
That's right.
So you're going to get a bad deal for him if you try to get out of it.
Right, exactly.
And he was not the third wheel. He was non-existent.
Correct, yeah.
Did you see the clip of him like slapping Frank Vogel's hand away?
No.
Coming off the court?
No.
Go check that one out.
I got to see that one.
Mad Brad. We got Mad Brad. So Brad got what he wanted, went where he wanted to, play with a couple stars, and was a nothing burger on a team that got swept.
You love to see it.
It's funny. I'm sorry, it is. And I like Brad. Everybody likes Brad, but that's funny. And that's comically funny.
It's also, though, this series was everything that's wrong with new school NBA versus old school NBA, because Kat and Anthony Edwards are killers.
Killers.
They smell the blood in the water, and they're going to cuss you out. And so after the first two games, in those games in Minnesota, it was like, oh, it's over. Like, those two actually, they didn't want to beat them. They wanted to embarrass KD. Like, I don't know if you noticed that either. Like, KD got posterized last night.
Yeah.
I think they were doing that on purpose. Yeah. They're like, we're not just going to beat you. We're going to embarrass you to the point where you're going to want to trade tomorrow. And that's basically what everyone's talking about at this point.
Game one, Edwards got up in Durant's face and was basically like, I'm you now.
Yes. He did the full I'm the captain now to him. And I was like, oh, it's over. Like, that team that hasn't gelled all season long has no reason to fight for each other. Meanwhile, Minnesota is going to go, we're not going to beat you. We're going to embarrass you. And we're going to blow this team up because we're going to sweep you. And they did just that.
Listen, this happened. It's funny. This guy tried to buy the Commanders. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
He's very excitable. See,
thank goodness. I mean,
we this is why when we got an ownership group that's been around the block, I was like, thank God.
Yeah,
because this organization needs stability, some long-term planning, nothing flip, just slow down. Let's build this thing the right way.
That's right.
And this group has come in and done that. Now, whether it'll happen or not, we'll see, right? Like the results will be what the results are. But I feel much more confident with them because they put a steady hand on it and didn't go crazy and go, all right, go get Justin Jefferson and go get every great player and pay him everything and get rid of everything. And then we have this crazy team like Snyder did when he first bought it.
Right.
This guy, this is what happens. It happened to Steve Cohen with the Mets. It's happened with this guy, some of them come in, and when they're new, they're so excited. They do things that are not in the best interest of their team. And I know that he's thinking, I have Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. Who's going to beat us? Well, if you don't have a team around them and they don't like the coach, which is out now, and they can't figure out how to play together, they can't stay healthy together, well, you're a 6 seed. And now you're taking on, by the way, Anthony Edwards might be the best player in the game.
That's right, yes.
Guess what? The best player in the game isn't on your team.
That's right.
So and they're stuck. Like, they're totally
so great.
Stuck.
I love it so
I'm
much.
assuming Durant wants to go somewhere else because he's going to know he can't win there.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith went on air today and said Devin Booker wants to play for the Knicks.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. and he said, and he qualified it with, I haven't talked to him about it, but his people.
Well, that's when Stephen A., when you know he's not He's a different animal when he talks about the NBA.
He doesn't say things. He's not Skip.
Yes.
He knows.
When it's the NBA, yes.
He doesn't just say it to say it. He'll tell you, I think you should go to the Knicks when he says, I think.
Yeah.
He said he wants to. He wants to flee. Durant wants to flee. And I got to tell you, like, I actually think for the Suns' sake that they actually, especially with Durant at 36, they really should. Like, because it's not going to happen, obviously.
Right,
They have no fix. There's no fix. They're stuck with Brad. We are maybe a trade or two away from Brad being on the worst team in the NBA.
He'd be right at home.
Yeah.
He'd be right at home.
Brad it's gonna be Suns, bruh, real soon. It's gonna be Brad and a bunch of guys, and he's gonna score 32 points a game, and they're not gonna win anything. That's happening. It's following him to Phoenix.
It's gonna be Brad, Nurkic, O'Neal, Royce O'Neal, Eric Gordon.
I'll give you. Durant's gonna finally say yes to Riley and go to Miami. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay, I mean
he's gonna finally say yes to it. He is. That's my guess. They've been circling him for a long time. They're going to tell him, you only got a few years left, man.
Yeah.
Come down here. We're a winning program. You know who we are. Come play with us. We're going to get the most out of the last few years of you. So I bet they do it. The Suns guy may not want to trade any of them. They're going to have to get real nasty about it. But Durant and Booker got to go because they can't win there now.
Well, you have to replenish your own draft picks, too. I mean, you have to.
It's their only way out.
Yeah,
and they're not going to – they'd trade Brad if they could, but who's taking it?
Yeah.
$54 million a year. Good luck with that. And his agent, they're serious about that no trade clause.
So good.
Real serious about that.
So much.
They might trade him for nothing.
Yeah, right.
Like someone else might go, we'll take him, but we're not going to give you anything.
This is the second time, by the way, where the local DC fans were right more than the national fans, where everyone wanted to trade Brad for a bag of potato chips, and we're like, we're not dumb. We're not going to do that. But then when everyone said, oh my God, what a steal for the Suns, and we're all going,
no.
Might want to wait for that one because
he's
third fiddle.
When they got Poole back, I went, that worked out better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Because I had succumbed to, we're just going to have to get rid of him because he's calling the shots, and we're just going to have to do it. And it actually worked out, I think, better because whether Poole's part of the future or not, if he gets his game back around, which seemed to turn, he's a tradable asset if that's the way they want to go at some point.
Do they want to trade Durant for Poole? Katie to
DC. He won't come here. I think he should go to Miami. It's a winning program. They're structured. He's only got a couple years left. Go there.
Can I give
He'll
you?
thrive there for a couple years.
Can I give you a dream scenario, which I think would actually be amazing? They have 1 million draft picks. Thunder.
He
goes back to OKC
with that team,
and he puts them over the top. Doesn't have to do as much. The draft picks they give up won't probably blow up any kind of plan for them because they have 15,000.
That'd be a heck of a go home. And if he's even part of them winning it there
too, like
it's kind of like the LeBron thing. He goes back and wins it there, then he's the hero, all-time hero.
Correct.
Even if he plays a more limited role, which is what it would actually be on that team.
Correct. Which I think he might
he'd probably start because they'd start him, but I bet he wouldn't play a ton of minutes. I bet you he'd play like 15, 20 minutes is what would end up happening.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do what LeBron does now. LeBron plays like 20 minutes a night now, but when he plays those 20 minutes, they're very hard minutes, right? I think Durant would do the same thing.
You're going to have him out there in the fourth quarter clutch time, of course.
Right, and Durant has openly said how much he liked playing in OKC because it was kind of his type of town, like where he...
Maybe Harden goes back there, too.
That's not happening.
And then Russ calls.
Then Russ calls.
Yeah.
Bring all three back.
And Scott Brooks is like, I'll coach the team. Right. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram Western Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. One more thing for that Sun series. How about that coach getting decked?
Oh, man.
That was awful.
Yeah, that was awful.
That was really awful. But the way it looked like he got a concussion, but then they said he had tore a ligament or something in his knee.
Yeah, I have no idea what the extent of that is. Is he in a wheelchair?
They said he's going to have surgery and that, he'll probably be back on the sideline, but, sitting. I would assume the rest of the way.
I guess
that was
so.
frightening.
Yeah. That was...
The weird part was because Twitter was like, "Oh my god," and then I looked at the clip, and it didn't look that bad. And real speed, it didn't look that bad. But I guess he just got caught the wrong way.
Right.
Old man runs into Mike Conley. Doesn't work out well for old man.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, so I hope he gets better. All right. We're starting to get the TV news. Here we go.
But not the one we want yet, though.
Yeah. Here we go, Jim. Who's going to be with Jim? We haven't gotten that yet.
Right, exactly.
Jason Kelce to Monday Night Football countdown. We don't know who he's replacing yet, albeit there was a lot of rumors that it would be RG3.
Right.
So we'll see. I think this is a coup for ESPN because I'm assuming they're trying to work out a deal to get that New Heights podcast, which I don't know whether they will or they won't, but I'm sure they're. I thought Amazon would get him for that purpose alone to try to get exclusive rights to that podcast because it's so popular. But I think it's a good win for them. It's a good spot for him. Going into the booth is hard. Like, a lot of guys who've tried to do it immediately. Some it takes to, some it doesn't. This doesn't expose him that way. Being on the set, he's going to know what they're going to talk about before they ever talk about it, and then his personality should shine in something like this, and I'm sure they'll have him do some dumb stuff along the way, and he'll be a willing participant with that stuff. He'll take his shirt off every so often in a cold weather environment, and then when they do Monday Night Countdown from the link, that's going to be incredible. Well, so so it's all really good.
This all settles out, too, kind of like how Romo did, where Romo was calling out plays and stuff, but he was close with the Cowboys. It's not the worst thing to have the guy that literally was the center on the Eagles for the next 4 or 5 years either. He's going to know all of the inside info with the Eagles. It's a good signing for them to have all of that as well locked in.
The other big change today is the NFL Today. James Brown is staying. So is Bill Cowher. So is Nate Burleson. But they have shifted out Phil Simms and Boomer Esiason.
Yeah.
And J.J. Watt, who had started to kind of make an appearance, is going to be a permanent member, and they added Matt Ryan, who I had heard in the booth a couple times. In fact, he called a couple of our games, and I think this is a better place for him personally. I agree. Like, I think he's, again, like, it's a different thing when you do the games, and it's not easy. And so if not all the players, I know, like they're all like, well, I know football, being able to communicate it in a really cogent, concise manner and add to the story is hard to do when the games are live and you've got 20 seconds to do it or less. It's hard to do. And so I think it's a good place for him to go. Phil, listen, he had a great career on TV. He's been around a long time. And so I hope he's not, I'm sure it's hard to say goodbye, but I'm sure he wasn't totally surprised. Boomer to me, even though he's been on there a very long time, I think he still has his fastball. So I'm not surprised just because of his age, but a little bit, because with Phil, I think it kind of run its course with Phil. No offense. I think he's done a great job for years and years and years, especially when he was in the booth with Nance for years and years and years. I thought he was great. I think time has come. Like, he played in the 80s, time has come to get a younger person in there. With Boomer, similarly, he's of that age, but every time he talked, I thought he was bringing it. And so I was a little surprised by that. And he even said on WFAN today, he goes, it was, he pulled we were mutually parting ways, but he admitted, I think it was a little more them than me. Yeah. Like, he didn't want to go.
I think what happened here, though, is I've been kind of waiting for one of these tables, whether it was them or Fox, to make the wholesale change to the more, and I don't want to sound like ageist here, but to the more modern athletes. Like, you now have a desk that has Matt Ryan and Watt. Watt's arguably the best defensive player of this generation. Ryan was one of the best quarterbacks not named Manning or Brady. Yeah. Like, I was waiting for this because the gap has been large from Boomer and Phil to move to those guys. Like, I was waiting for, not to butt these guys out, but when are you going to get a couple of the more modern players here? Because then you got people like my age that are in their 30s going, I didn't see either of these guys, and I'm getting old now, like older now. Like, when are you going to get those guys in? And now that they are, I think that's a good move for them.
I wanted to, Cowher's getting up there too. Mm-hmm. So that was, if they're going to make this reboot, I thought it was possible. Sure. But I'm trying to think, who would it's got to be a coach.
Yeah.
Who would that coach be?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. And, in all likelihood, if it's going to be Belichick, it might only be for a year. You don't really want to do that.
Right.
For McAfee, that's fine. He doesn't care. But, for them, they want to get somebody in there. And I'm like, who's retired that would be doing this for a while, that would be really great and relevant, who's been a winner, Super Bowl champion? Well, who is that? Right. I can't think of who that would be. Had Andy Reid retired, it would have been perfect to put him in the booth. But there isn't somebody like that right now. Belichick and Reid have won so much. There isn't really somebody like that. So I guess they'll stick that part out. Not that I think Bill's bad. It's just it's been a while. He's been on the set for a long time, and they are really, putting a youth movement into it.
I mean, you're right though. There's no other coach that jumps out that didn't go jump to something else either. If you think about it, Jimmy Johnson's probably the most prominent one, not named Cowher, just because everyone else jumps back into it, right? Who didn't jump back into coaching? Peyton was on the Fox desk, but he went right back to coaching. Yeah. So I don't think
they want to do that. If Sean McVay ever truly did just go, I am burnout and I'm retiring, he's a shoo-in. to like go into something like that if he wants to do it. But he's a lifer.
Ron.
He's at there. I bet he asked.
I mean, he tried. He did the trial run with ESPN for a little bit.
Congratulations to Talia, who is going to Seattle as an undrafted rookie.
Wow,
free agent.
Talia and Howell.
Talia and Howell.
Huh.
Yeah, Talia and Howell.
It's a little DMV West out there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like to, push my scouting. I kind of told y'all he wasn't going to get drafted.
Yeah.
Like I loved him as a college quarterback,
right.
but I wish him luck up there. I hope that's an interesting place to compete. Hal, Gino, and him.
Yep.
A good spot to go compete.
It's a chance to make the roster, bare minimum. Yeah.
No doubt.
Practice squad.
Or at least practice squad, see what they got out of them.
For sure.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'll talk about the Commanders draft. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, let's go through the Commanders draft over the weekend. Obviously, Friday we got to talk a lot about the drafting of Jayden Daniels. Obviously, I'm very excited. I actually don't think it was that hard of a choice, even though we talked about like it was for months and months.
It's never do that again.
They did a good job of like making everybody guess.
Well, no, they just made everyone chase each other's tails.
Yeah,
because they didn't reveal anything.
Right.
So, speaking of Lord of the Flies with Lord Brad, that was the media cycle the last 2 months. It was everyone yelling at each other with no information.
That's right. No information.
Right. And then Topgolf was the head on the stake. Apparently, that just set everyone off.
That's right. That was full Lord of the Flies at that point.
By the way, if I'm Keim,
he doesn't like Topgolf. Oh God, don't draft him.
If I'm Keim, I get a picture of that hit in front of Topgolf and get it framed. That was
When
the best move of all time.
I texted him. I go, that's a Hall of Fame live shot. I was like, that's amazing.
Got to get that framed. Got to get it framed.
That's amazing.
Maybe framed.
I got to do, next time I have him on, I'm going to ask him, whose idea was it? Was it yours or was it the producers?
I think also, like, you got to get to the PR over there, Commanders, and slide Jayden to, like, sign that one for him. Give it to him one day. Like, maybe not now, but
maybe
like.
not now.
But
Kime's
a couple
like
years.
We don't ask for things.
No,
like
I know.
that.
That's why I said Commanders PR. That's why I know how it works. Come on. I know how it works over there. But, like, I think that'd be a funny one to have.
I'm really excited about him because – like, we just haven't had somebody with a skill set like this playing this position really since RG3. So, and I think he comes in here as a more accomplished passer than RG3 did when he was coming out of Baylor. Mm-hmm. Not that RG3 couldn't have developed into that. He also didn't seemingly get on the same page with his coaches, and that apparently doesn't matter anymore because everybody loves him again. But that's not important right now. So, yeah, to Jayden.
That's apparently interesting.
Yeah,
not important.
yeah, Jayden, have a couple good games this year, and we'll be in love with you forever.
Ring of Fame.
No matter what you do.
Ring of Fame, apparently.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm very excited. I think the floor on him is we're exciting, and the ceiling on him is I don't know if he's gonna like improve and translate into the NFL the way he did as he went through his college career. We could be off to the races with this guy. Mm-hmm. I'm having these visions of, Dak is maybe in Dallas a year, maybe a couple more. Dimes, they're trying to figure that out. Hurts, I think that there's probably, I bet, a 2-year window here because they move on from things. He's either going to be good or they're going to hightail out of that.
They're also now paying their wide receivers $150 million. So they're starting to lock up their salary cap too a little bit as well.
Yeah. So, there's this part of me that goes, God, I hope I'm saying this in 2 years, we got the best quarterback in the division. Like,
right.
I think it's possible that that's going to be the case. I hope, but it's all hope. And until he plays,
No
I don't
Dimes.
Not Dimes. He won't be.
Still beat us, apparently.
Well, not in those jerseys. See what he's wearing this year? Oh, my God.
That's your nightmare and it's going to happen, right?
This year?
They're going to play the Commanders in those jerseys, and Dimes is going to beat them.
You know what I want? The apropos part would be Jayden Daniels rushes for some 70-yard touchdown on them. It'd be like, how's that feel? We dealt with that with your guy for a few years.
Sure,
and then the next week, he'd go 13 of 28 for 110 yards and lose 32-7. And we're like, what is up? Like,
Correct.
What has this guy got on us?
It's the most frustrating thing in the world.
So, all right. So the Jayden Daniels pick is what it is. And, I'm obviously very excited about it. And all along, I've been saying it for months. I'm like, I don't know how they're going to turn him down. Like, I just don't know how they would have gone a different direction. And then, what does the reporting mean? Because they said nothing. I don't know, but everyone seemed to confirm after the fact that if they weren't going to take him, it was going to be J.J. McCarthy.
Yep.
That's what the direction they were going to go. But I don't think they ever really seriously. Adam Peters even kind of made it like, I know you guys thought we were, but we knew what we were doing.
Right.
So then came are they going to trade back into the first round? And they didn't. And they did try. And it appears that nobody really wanted to move from the spots they needed to get to.
Correct.
And as predicted, the tackles went off the board hot and heavy. So all of the really good prime candidates were gone. The one that got me was once they got to Amarius Mims went 18. I think they were hoping he would get into the 20s and then there'd be a willing participant to trade with them. Once he went 18, I kind of figured we're in trouble here.
Yeah.
There was one other, the guy who went to Green Bay, the Arizona tackle, who I thought might be of interest, but they didn't move off of it. And then once Tyler Guyton went to the Cowboys, and he's a project, but like once he went, I went, I don't think we're going to pick a tackle early in the second round anymore, even though I know it's a need, because I don't get the sense that this group is going to overdraft anybody for need. And that's how it played out. The first pick they made was a surprise, only because of position group, right?
Right.
Because when you got John and Duran, like you don't think, especially when you need a tackle, need a corner, need a tight end, need a receiver, you think automatically they're going to go for a different position group. And so I was surprised, but everybody who's a draft analyst, and not that I knew a lot about this Johnny Newton guy, but like all of them were like home run.
Yep. Right.
Like player of the year, Big Ten, shouldn't have been available, too good to be true. They had to take him. And now watch out, because this guy can play inside, outside. Payne can play inside, outside. And they're going, this is going to be a monster up front.
Yep.
So I think Dan Quinn and Joe Witt got themselves some flexibility on their line, because we're sitting there going, okay, it's John and Duran. What's behind them? We don't know what they think of Mathis. We'll see. We don't know what they think of Ridgeway. We'll see. But there's not a lot of depth there all of a sudden. The rush end situation settled with Armstrong one side, unsettled other side, right? Because they got a bunch of like veterans who are going to be here for a year, maybe two. They're baselining that spot. I thought that's the direction they would go. Well, all of a sudden, this idea that they have three, and in Payne's case and this guy Newton's case, hybrid-ish defensive tackle, defensive ends, I think suddenly they have some flexibility. And I didn't know a lot about him going in, but every person who covers the draft was like, that's a ridiculous value that they got for him. So it is a need. They are baselining the roster. I think we've realized here the sheer number of players that are different this year ought to tell you what they thought of that current roster. They signed 20 guys. They have a 9-person draft class. They brought in a bunch of undrafted free agents, and most of them won't make the team.
Yeah.
But we're talking about half of the preseason roster is completely different. And I would project 25 to 35 different players from a year ago. And some of them that are carryovers, one's a specialist. He's a punter.
That's right. Yep.
Like, name the guys on the team who are carryovers now. Nobody in the quarterback room. Robinson, maybe Rodriguez, but they just brought in a couple running backs, so we'll see. And Eckler's obviously going to be on the team. Cosme on the offensive line. I guess Stenberg, but they just signed Biotish, but I don't know. Right. I don't know. Like, what's his future with this? I don't know. I guess he's on a rookie contract, so maybe. They brought Cornelius Lucas back, but we'll see if he starts or not. I'll get to that in a second. Jahan and Terry and Crowder, I guess, if you count that. But, like, the rest of the receiving core is now because
Dummy.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. I mean, like, they just drafted a receiver.
Sure.
So I don't know what's going to happen there. And on defense, just go look at the names. It's so very different than what it was. This is a whole different team. Completely whole different team. I love the Newton pick just out of, you know what it said to me? They're going to read their board. They're not going to feel forced to do anything. They know they need a tackle. They couldn't get one. And there was something, by the end of Thursday, I went, that's the one that unfortunately is going to get kicked down the road. They're going to have to do something about it. Yeah. And I was actually glad, because we were arguing on the air with London and Logan. I was on the air with them Friday, and I'm like, don't overdraft.
Yes.
Like, I know they need a tackle. You know they need a tackle. But if they take somebody who's not worthy of that pick and he turns out to be not that good, then you're going to look at them and go, why did you do that? So they went and took a guy who they think could be a starter. And even if it's not a complete position of need, and I appreciated that they stuck to it, because we all know they need a tackle. They're going to have to do something about it. But they didn't address it there, and I think it was the right thing to do to not address it there once the board fell the way it fell.
It was very nice that most of the picks, the second the player was drafted, it very much matched up where they should be drafted.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had that over the last, 4 drafts, however many Ron did. Like, it was a constant, they drafted that guy, And you'd go look at the draft and go, that guy wasn't supposed to go until the 3rd round.
Well,
and you took him in the 2nd round. Like
2 corners. Okay.
Right, yeah, right. Like I looked at the the epitome of everything that was
like
wrong.
we know all these things you need, but you went 2 corners. Okay.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like, to me, the epitome of Ron's drafting was Fedarian Mathis. It was like, wait, you took a D tackle in a weak D tackle class and you overdrafted him. Because why? Because you needed a backup defensive tackle. But you didn't need to take him. Like, it was everything that was wrong with how he drafted was that pick, essentially. And, like, Forbes was too, but granted, at least he was a first round, grade. But it was every pick was like, you overdrafted him by 60 spots or whatever it was.
Even in Jahan's case, people got on. They said, listen, we all think he's really good, but they got him a little too high.
Correct. Exactly. And you basically traded Olave, right? Because that's who the Saints took with your pick, right? Like, so there's a lot of that with Ron where you're going, you better hit or else it's going to come back to bite you. And then here we are 4 years later and look at the roster, as you just mentioned, it's going to be over half turnover, essentially.
So then they traded with the Eagles for the second pick. And that ended up being Cooper DeJean, which I think is going to be very interesting because he was one that everyone said would go in the first round and didn't. And then they get him.
Joke with him with their Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean, J-A-W-N.
It's already been the joke.
That's pretty good.
There,
He's going to be a safety. I don't believe he's going to be a corner. I believe he's going to be a safety. They also picked a corner in the first round. So, and I will say this for the Eagles. Like, everybody's got their blind spots. They actually don't do well picking those players at that position. That's not a very good spot for them. They how the Ravens always got receiver wrong until they got Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
They don't actually do very well at those positions. Like, they do really well on offensive line and some of these other places, but that's been a blind spot for them.
Sure.
And I think DeJean fell into the second round and behind a bunch of corners because he's not one.
Right.
That he's a very good athlete.
Sure.
And so I think they're going to transition him to safety. And then this is one of those, we traded with him and they got him. So if this guy ends up being a killer for us, that's going to be something that'll come back to bite us, but maybe not. We'll see. So then they traded down and added another second round pick. And then they made the pick I loved.
Mm-hmm. This is my favorite pick of the draft.
Okay. Like, I would say in this for, everyone kept talking about, right. Everybody kept talking about, like, they need a tackle, obviously. And we think they need a tight end, which they addressed, and I'll get to in a minute. And they needed an edge rusher. And so all that seemed to be way above cornerback. And I've been going, guys, I don't think we have a number one on this team. Mm-hmm. And, like, you're putting a lot of stock in Forbes rising up. Kendall Fuller's not on this team right now. Like, we don't have. And they went and got a couple of veteran corners who've been in and out of starting lineups who are going to compete. But I think they needed another one. This was a home run. Like, this one, when they picked him, I almost passed out. He's awesome.
Yep.
Mike Sanistril was a receiver in college who transitioned to be a corner. He's not big. He knows he's a slot corner. They don't really have a slot corner. I think this screams Benjamin St. Juste now moves back to the outside again. At least for now, probably. This guy's captain of the team. Every person I know around the Michigan program texted me immediately and was like, you are going to love this guy. He's awesome. Heart and soul of the team. Team loved him. Big plays and clutch moments. Yep. You're going to love this dude. And I thought it filled a direct need, and I think he's a day one starter in the slot for them.
No, I mean, he was my favorite pick mainly because it was an epitome of what they want on this team, is somebody who is captain, character type guy, makes the big plays. This is their playmaker. This is their Diggs. I think this is going to be the guy that reaps all the benefits.
Walking into a situation where corners eat.
Yep, correct.
This defense causes turnovers. Mm-hmm. He's an instinctive player. He's not big, but he's an instinctive player. This guy walks in day one a starter. Yep. And I thought that, and I'm like, and this was, I thought, a massive position of dire need. Yeah. Like they needed another starter. And I think it had been overlooked by these other positions. And I was so glad that they did it. And again, didn't overdraft a tackle. Went and took best player on the board. And I think I saw Nick Saban say something like pound for pound best player in the draft.
Yeah, he said it was his favorite player.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that one. Then 3 picks later, they picked the tight end that they want.
Yep.
And I think they got ahead of what was going to be a run on them. Brock Bowers is going to be a first-round pick, and he went. And then there wasn't another tight end. And I think that they decided between 53 and 67, we probably won't get our guy. We need a young pass-catching tight end. So they took Ben Sinnott. He doesn't have a huge pedigree in football. Actually, he wasn't that high of a recruit. He kind of walked on to Kansas State. He's a crazy athlete. Most of these guys are. He lettered in like 5 different sports, including, you'll like this part, hockey. And what was sent to me, the video from the team, because they acquired it, is clips of him. He's Tom Wilson.
That-
Just decking people. Like, just taking people out, completely running them over, decking them. So the Caps will love to see him, too.
So wait,
He'll be at a lot of Caps
So what, he
games.
just played hockey in high school is what you're saying? Okay, all right.
And I mean, just running people over, like almost like he enjoyed it too much. Meantime,
Okay.
like he's a kind of classic H-back. They move him a lot in motion. He can catch the ball. He's big target. And we've seen this through the years. A lot of teams have done this. Luke Musgrave's an example of it. Jake Ferguson's an example of it. Teams have been able to go out and get, Sam Laporte is an example of it, where they find these tight ends and they are day one starters and extremely effective. And, I think the hope here is that he'll fit in, learn from Ertz. And if Kingsbury runs an offense like he used to, there will be a lot of 2 tight end sets.
Right.
So 2 pass catching tight ends. So I think we're looking forward to probably seeing a little bit of that.
Is
too.
the narrative around him, only because you're gonna just know more than I am on this point, is the narrative around him, is it lazy to compare him to like a Cooley pick? People were talking about
Yes.
that. Okay.
A little bit. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
he will line up in the backfield. He will go in motion. He will hit people, and he's got very good hands. He's not going to burn you down the field.
Right,
He's
right.
not a speed threat, but in the red zone, he's very tough.
So
He's
it's
a
not
big-
a lazy narrative, what you're saying. He is
I
kind of
don't
that
think
way.
so,
Okay.
but I mean,
Got
I
it.
hope
Okay.
he ends up being cool.
No,
I
of
mean,
course,
like that's the hope. But like, and I think they could slow roll him in because they have Ertz here.
Yes.
So and we'll see how they
There's
utilize
no threat
him.
behind Ertz either, though. So like he's
No.
stepping in and being the second tight end. I mean,
Correct.
None of those guys have stepped up over the last
No,
couple of years. So.
Bates is going to make the team probably as a blocking tight end.
I don't even put Bates in the same
No,
category.
and then-
he's a different guy.
I think the other interesting one will be Armani Rogers. What do they think of him coming off that Achilles? Because there was some juice there. Like they had to find in him. So we'll see if he makes the team or not. But there'll be a good competitive. So that's that. Then we get to the third round, which turned into 2 picks, not 3, because they had traded and I couldn't even figure out it was impossible to figure out what had happened.
Yeah.
And the first one they went with was it the tackle? It was the tackle first.
Brandon
right?
Coleman from TCU. Yeah.
Brandon Coleman, TCU. He played both guard tackle, so Ron will love that position flex. They made it very clear. It was interesting. The team came out and said he's a tackle.
Yep.
So obviously they need one. It's a 3rd round pick.
Sam
So,
Cosby's like, must be nice.
yeah, must be nice.
Just
Yeah.
decide on draft day what you're going
So
to play.
that's where they're going to put him,
Yeah.
right or left tackle. I'm not sure which
So
one.
he's
I would
freaky
think left.
athlete when I saw
Freaky
the stats.
athlete. All these like analytic scores, put him very high. I don't know much about him.
Yeah.
I do know that some really good linemen have come out of that program the last couple of years, including Steve Avila, who went really high last year to the Rams. It was somebody I think the Commanders were looking at like hardcore last year. So they've got it right down there in that position group. So hopefully that carries over. But again, this is a 3rd round pick. It's going to be hard for me to project him to start. And if he is, well, he's ahead of the curve.
Yep.
So let's see. And I'll get back to tackling because I don't think they're done there. I think because of the way this played out, there's something that needs to be done. Whether he ends up being good or not, and I hope he is, but it's a 3rd round pick. And then they finished the 3rd round going bloodlines and went and got Luke McCaffrey,
Yep.
whose brother is Christian, whose dad is Ed. I don't remember where he was before he went to Rice. I think it was Nebraska. I think he was at Nebraska. And then he was kind of a gadget weapon. They did everything with him. And then he went to Rice, and I think they're just going bloodlines here.
Was
here's-
Nebraska.
Yeah. He's someone who comes from a family of football players. And I don't want to put too much on it. I think if he was a top-tier prospect, he would have gone a lot higher than he did.
Sure.
But again, it was another box checked. They needed another receiver. Like,
Right.
they did. Like, think about who's on this team right now. It's Terry, Jahan. Crowder's really, I think, going to be more of a returner. Zacchaeus was signed. He could be a slot receiver for them. He'll probably be in competition. Diami's still here. I don't know how they feel about him. We'll have to see how that goes. They need another receiver. And maybe he's a returner, too. I'm not really totally sure.
Okay.
I'd have to, because I've seen him do a lot of gadgety things in Nebraska for sure. So maybe he is. We'll see how they think about that with him. But, like, fine. Bloodlines, player, gamer, understands the game, good family support. His brother's a superstar.
Right.
So, you know what? Good. We need another piece of competition. Let's see if he competes when
How
he comes
dare
up
you
here.
not mention Dax Milne?
Dax Milne's still on the team, too. Dax Milne's a route runner is very good, by the way.
I know. No,
punt returner.
He's always the guy that I've liked. He's buried on the depth chart.
Buried
so.
on the depth chart. So then, no 4th round pick, got to the 5th round. Who was the first one? The linebacker?
The linebacker from Temple, that was Jordan McGee.
To me, maybe a touch undersized, but we'll see. But has the traits that they talk about.
Sure.
Aggressive, captain of the team, all this type of stuff.
I think they would have
like all
won
that
after
stuff. Yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Maybe.
if the Eagles hadn't traded up to get him too. That was one where I was kind of like, ooh, they could have done that.
Second, 5th round pick I love. This is the safety out of Washington.
Dominique Hampton.
Yes. Size, length, speed. Again, 5th round pick. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to go too rose-colored glasses on all these guys. It's 5th round pick.
Yeah.
But he fits the profile.
Sure.
And again, another player that, Cam Curl's not here. So all of a sudden the depth at this position is very different. Like the starters clearly, now that they got Sandstrel, I think we're now seeing the Quan's going to be a movable piece, but really a safety. Maybe a kind of linebacker safety, but I thought maybe slot corner. That's Sandstrel now. He's going to be the movable piece safety. They're going to love Defoe. I think they're going to love Defoe when they get him back and healthy because he plays violently. He plays the style that they are talking about. What's behind that? Jeremy Reeves is back, but he's really a special teamer. Cam's not here anymore. This guy.
Yep.
So he's walking into an incredible situation. Like he's going to make the team as a 5th round. Like some 5th round picks may or may not. You always want to keep your guys, but it's a competitive situation. He's walking into a spot where he may play. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see him. Size, length, aggressiveness, played on that team that got to the championship game. I'm interested to see what that looks like. Yep. So he'll be good for them. And then the last pick was an edge rusher from Notre Dame, of which I would just say this, and it's 7th round pick. Played a lot at Ohio State and Notre Dame. He's got a lot of experience. In all the things that I saw, that I'm watching after the fact, because I didn't know they were going to pick the guy. At that point, it's impossible to project what they're going to do, and I'm not Mel Kiper. So I watched a lot of clips of him and highlights of him. I would describe him as work in progress and not particularly fluid yet, but he's coming into a spot where you can earn a spot, and we've seen this before with some lower round picks. Casey Toole was very good here, right? He's in Buffalo now. James Smith-Williams turned into a very good reserve player, so maybe he is, and there's going to be room to try to make this team because that side edge is something between Cleveland Farrell, F.A. Obata, Dante Fowler, who's a reserve rotational player. He's not going to be in all the time. And who? Right. So this guy will have, KJ Henry. And so this guy will have a chance. And we'll have to see how he develops. But he was the one where I went, that's a pretty raw, maybe not fluid, and maybe, they saw traits that they like, and we'll see.
He's a 7th round pick.
Overall, I'm very happy.
Sure.
I'm very happy. They checked off a lot of boxes at a lot of position groups of need. They didn't overdraft. They let the board fall to them. They took the best player on the board at 36, even if it wasn't a definitive need.
Yep.
They just got a good player.
Yep.
And the Sandstrel one I thought was the home run one of all of them. I thought the Jayden pick was easy. I thought the Newton pick was interesting. And then the Sandstrel one I went, not only is it a need, that guy's a day one starter with a lot of experience. I love this guy. Sinnott hopefully turns into the tight end that they're hoping he'll be. I think altogether, and a lot of people lauded their draft. A lot of the game, I don't care about the grades, but most of them walked out going, they did really well. And I agree. I think they did really well here.
I think the most interesting part when it was all said and done, I forget, which one of the conglomerates put it together, was they had the most athletic draft out of everyone, and which I actually found interesting, mainly because this group has hedged themselves on, they like to draft character guys, like football guys that like to play the game and have a lot of heart, seemingly.
Yeah.
The fact that they married that with also a bunch of athletes, too, tells me they really knocked it out of the park. That they were not only getting their guys, they were getting kind of like the most athletic guys at their position. Of course, Jayden probably takes up a certain percentage of that athleticism because I think he's probably the most athletic quarterback in the draft. But I think for the rest of the draft, for that to kind of shake that way, I don't think anyone really saw that coming. The Newton pick, too, by the way, that was the... I'm not going to call it the best pick because of course, Jayden, I'm going to roll with that's the most important one. But the Newton pick to me is everything you've seen from Quinn and Witt is that they're going to figure out how to get you on the field and producing. And the fact that they're going to have a third defensive lineman monster out there where we saw Payne lining up a little bit on the edge last year.
Yes.
It means we're going to see all three of them on the field.
We're going to see some weird rotational pieces here.
Yes, exactly.
They're flexible with what they're doing. Sandstrel offers, I think, flexibility with Quan. I thought Quan was going to end up being the nickel corner. The second they got Sandstrel, I went, oh.
Yep, right.
They're going to utilize him differently. Mm-hmm. And then the undrafted free agents came out, headlined by the good-looking quarterback out of Notre Dame, who got some real money, actually, to sign here, like a couple $100,000 guaranteed to come in here to compete.
Yeah.
They already had 4 quarterbacks on the roster. Remember, they signed, not only did they sign Marcus Mariota, but they had signed Jeff Driscoll, too.
Yeah, right.
Jake Fromm's a carryover. He's probably not liking seeing that.
Sure.
So between the 2 veterans and now Hartman getting real money Fromm's probably in trouble, I would assume.
Right.
Mariota's going to make the team as the primary backup for sure. So it looks like it's going to be let's bring this guy in. Let's see what he's got. If we think we could develop him, we'll either sneak him to the practice squad or Driscoll gets cut. But that's probably the competition. Third quarterback, whether they keep 3 will be interesting on the roster, but
I'll only say this because you mentioned Mariota. We have a little bit of a numbers crunch. Daniels is wearing 5. We haven't heard what number he's going to wear yet.
They haven't said anything about that yet.
And my
negotiations with Tress Way must be underway.
There's probably negotiations. I want to say this too because I was asked about this yesterday. There's not warehouses of Tress Way jerseys, people. They don't have to pay any extra money for that. Like if you get a Tress Way jersey, you're getting a custom one. You're not having to pay $300,000 to buy up the extra Tress Way jerseys. So this is a strict organizational exchange here. This isn't like, remember the Cousins Pitts thing? They decided not to do it because they had to buy like $500,000 worth of Pitts jerseys, and they were both like, we don't want to do that. Like it's a waste of money. This is not the case. Daniels wants 5, and they make that negotiation. They don't have to buy all these extra Tress Way jerseys. That's part number 1. The other thing is Santa Estrella, Michigan, War 0.
War 0.
And I'm kind of like, Marcus, if the asks, I think you should make a negotiation there because I think a DB slot corner wearing 0.
Marcus, though, is like
badass.
Heisman Trophy winner.
I know.
Going, you're asking me?
1 year deal, though.
Right. Okay.
So I'm just throwing that one out there. I saw some fan put like a petition out there. I'm like, guys, a petition doesn't matter here, between the players. So I'm just pointing out that there's some number things that could happen here.
Overall, I'm very happy.
Yep.
None of it seemed confusing like last year's.
Or like I said, not looking at a draft ranking of a guy of going, oh, he could have been there in the 4th round,
It was deserved, but like throughout the year, a storyline was that draft class made no sense.
Yep, correct. Yep.
It just didn't.
Yeah.
And in this case, there is the one other thing, which, it needs to be obviously acknowledged. They tried to get a tackle. They did get one in the 3rd round. Let's be careful about pushing too much on this person. I think they need to get another one.
Yeah.
Like that has to happen.
Yeah.
I think they're aware of it. Mekhi Becton just signed with the Eagles, so he's off the market, albeit I don't like him. So like that, he hasn't lived up to anything.
Sure.
So I don't want a project, honestly. But they're going to have to go out and find a veteran tackle one way or the other over the next couple of months. I don't see how they're going to go into camp like this. So I do think and this always went back to, I think they have too many boxes to check to get it all done in one offseason. So they're going to have to bridge over to this. Like last year when I said it screams they're going to pick a left tackle when they get to the draft. Well, they got the number 2 overall pick. It screams next year they are going to pick a left tackle in the 1st round of the draft because it's going to be so necessary next year. And hopefully the crop of players that are coming out next year are like this one. There were so many good ones coming out. It's really too bad we didn't have a first round pick. I don't advocate trading out. I think they did the right thing at number 2. But it would have been nice to have gotten back in because there were a lot of terrific options at the position of need, and it just didn't happen for them.
Veterans, the only name I saw thrown out there was like Bakhtiari. But he's always been banged up for the last couple of years.
Banged up is an understatement for him. He's barely been able to play for like 3 years running.
Well, that's veteran that I'm looking at the list, and that's the guy that jumps out, and they might just have to risk it,
Or you bring him in and you go, between you and Lucas and this rookie, maybe you all play each.
Yeah, maybe
5 games while we bring this guy along, I guess that's possible. You're really risking it with him. He's just barely been able to play the last few years, and I'll have to look at the market, but I'm pretty convinced that they're not done there.
Yeah,
that's the spot that they have to go get somebody. All right, we'll talk about the rest of the teams in the draft next. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. One more thing on Bradley Beal. Okay, forgot to read this. This tweet's amazing. This is Troy Halliburton who, you know what I'm about to say.
I do. I saw this tweet earlier today.
The more I sit back, did he cover the team? I think he covered.
I think he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he
did or does.
He's definitely been in the media for the Wizards.
He watches all their games.
Yeah, either that or he's constantly on social media talking about the Wizards.
The more I sit back and think about Beal's tenure in D.C., the more I have to laugh. That man really planted his own reporter in the Wizards media just to gas up everything he did. He ducked accountability at every turn because the Wizards coddled him.
Where's the lie?
I can't confirm he planted a reporter in the media.
Would it shock you, though, for a monumental...
The coverage of him
right.
was always made no sense to me.
One of your favorite
Made
bits
no sense
is
to me.
One of your favorite bits is literally, I like Brad.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Brad because of that, though.
Yes.
And remember too, it was
You don't have to tell me I like Brad. I do like Brad. I think he's a good guy. However, now making $18 billion a year with a no trade clause, shouldn't you be, I don't know, in the playoffs?
Right. Correct. And don't forget, remember, there was a time when Wall was on the team still, and I forget what happened, but it was like the press release was like Ted, Scott Brooks, Tommy Shepard, and Brad said something.
Yes.
But John was still on the team. Everybody was like, that guy's the captain.
I know.
That's the heart and soul of the team.
There's so many moments now. You think back on it. It's like, John's like, I knew when Brad visited me and was like, I don't know about next year, that I knew I wasn't going to be there.
Yeah.
Brad is the one going turn in your playbook?
Right.
Why would he be empowered to do that?
And by the way, like, we're just going down memory lane here. My favorite one of all time, and I still have the clip somewhere, was when they lost to Philly in the first round. Not like the Caps. They weren't expected to win, but it was, let's see how many games you win, and what did they lose in 5-6 games, something like that.
That was the popcorn series.
Yes.
Where someone dumped popcorn on Russ.
And they asked Russ, hey, what'd you think of old Scott Brooks there? And he goes, love Scott. Scott's my guy.
Yeah.
You know, I hope he's back, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then they asked Brad about Scott. He goes, oh, well, you know, I just have to talk to Tommy and Ted.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Right. Are you the GM?
What do you mean you have to talk to them? You don't make those decisions last time I checked. And so that's when I was like, oh, he is fully, this is my team now. So we knew it then. 2021.
It was a running bit for years. He's not covered the way a superstar would be covered.
Yes.
He's not held to any level of accountability here.
Right.
The only person who ever really does it every once in a while is Candace. Or David.
Right.
But like it has to be top ticket stuff because David doesn't even seem to bother with the everyday because they're a non-factor and have been for a long time. Candace, though, feels the necessity to every once in a while to go, guys.
Candace pulls the switchblade out. She goes, it's time. Let's cut this one up now.
I've been playing nice with you guys for months.
Right.
And you know what? Like, I've had enough.
Right.
And that's where the Brad thing always got me. Because the whole time I'm like, don't you guys see it?
Right.
Why don't you see it? Like, I like Brad. Everybody likes Brad. He's not a top-tier player. He's a really good player, but you treat him like he's LeBron James.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing?
And that's where the disconnect was with the fan base, too, because I think the fan base knew, all right, John, you can't shoot, but you're fast as hell. You'll play some defense sometimes. And when you're on your game, you electrify the whole entire arena.
He changed games.
Correct.
His ability to get up and down the court changed games. When the defense was working, it was Wall. He made them the fastest, best transition offense in the league.
And
period. And I used to always yell and go, stop shooting, just go to the hole, go to the hole.
Yes.
They can't stop you. Just go to the hole.
Correct. But I think everyone knew John's downside, but it was like, you know what? We know you're going to go play your ass off, and we know you're going to get hurt, but you know what? We're living with you.
That's right.
But Brad, though, it was, oh, you're going to go ahead and score 40, but you're still going to lose 120-95 against the Sixers on a Tuesday night. Or it was Brad going, oh, well, you know, we need to play defense. Start playing defense harder. And then the highlights show you don't like to play defense either. So it wasn't matching anything that you were saying that they should do. Ever.
Yeah.
You never, and by the way, to your point too, you never changed games. You scored a bunch of points a bunch of times. But remember he hit like the one.
We used to always say it. Name the game that you remember that he was like, oh, man, remember that time he scored 13 of the last 15 points and they came back from 10 down?
He had that one game winner that last year, and I don't even remember who it was, but I think we came in the next day like, oh, look at that. Brad hit a game winner. It was like he finally hit one.
Good job.
Right, after he's making $58 million a year.
And then the one that got me the most was the 10-3 start, Lord of the Flies. And he's like,
took no accountability for being the captain.
Zero.
Right.
Isn't this your team? Whose team is this? This is your team.
It reminded me, you know, that beginning of that season reminded me of when Zorn had the Redskins at 6-2, and people were kind of losing their minds.
They're like, oh wow,
like people were like, oh, this is nice. 6-2. Like Gibbs didn't even do this. And then it all fell apart on him. We're like, yeah, well, it's Zorn. What are you going to do?
Right. We all assumed. Yeah.
Yell hip, hip, hooray in the locker room. That was going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
But then with that part of the Wizards, though, that 10-2 felt like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
What
is this?
Are they going to be good?
Yeah.
And then it fell apart only the way the Wizards can fall apart.
The stupidest part of that is that trade should have changed everything for them.
Yes.
They traded Russell Westbrook for 4 starting caliber players.
Right.
All young.
Right.
And the only one left on the team is Kuzma, right?
Yes. Yeah.
KCP played on a championship team last year.
Right.
Montrez has had his ups and downs.
Loved Montrez, though.
For those 15 games, that was an amazing ride. We were chanting MVP. I mean, that was stupid.
Still hanging up in my closet, his jersey.
Who else did we get? Kuzma, Montrez, KCP.
And we're missing. Who am I missing here?
I swore it was a 4th.
They traded someone to Denver. It was whoever they traded. Wasn't
Well,
it?
it's KCP.
Was that KCP
KCP
traded?
was on the championship team last year. I
sick.
can't remember. But that trade, I remember when that happened, and I went, oh, my God. Like, that's a steal that they got all of those guys. They got starting caliber players here, or at least primary veteran reserves. At the bare minimum, that's what they got.
We had it right.
Kuzma, frontline starter. KCP and Harrell, starter/reserve players, but pros, total pros.
No, we had it right. It was those 3 in the 22nd overall pick.
Right.
So whoever they
For
drafted.
Russ.
Yeah.
For Russ.
Yeah.
Washed up Russ. Well, I hope he didn't hear that. He'll yell at me. He yells at people. But that was a coup.
Yep.
Tommy flipped Wall, who can't play anymore because of injuries, for Russ. For 1 year, and flipped Russ for that. It should have changed everything for them.
Right.
Instead, they've gone into the dumpster fire.
Right.
And now Winger's trying to get him out, but he is smiling today because Brad's not here. He was the albatross. And it's probably not his fault that, like, Phoenix is out. But, like, that is a terrible roster that they have with 3 really good players on it.
Right.
But a terrible roster. And then there's, like, all this stuff. Vogel's, like, quietly telling people, I told them to get me a point guard. They wouldn't get me one because they said they would get the ball be out of the hands of the other 3 too often if we got a point guard. And then Durant's people were like, I hate the offense here. And Brad, go look at the clip slapping Vogel's hand away. So he's going to get fired because they have no choice. Or Durant's going to get real angry. He's probably getting fired no matter what.
Right.
And then Durant, let's see how angry he gets and does he force a trade.
Right.
Let's see.
Right.
How about they planted a reporter? That's quite an insinuation, Troy.
Are you shocked?
Is it possible that a reporter just happened to be a fan of him and just didn't see beyond that?
Sure, but I wouldn't put it past knowing Brad saying, I need you to hire my person, whether it's a guy or girl, I don't know. But you need to hire my person to be on the broadcast. That's so Brad, actually. That's so on brand for Brad, actually.
It is. And I'm also not naming anybody because I don't know who he's referring to.
Yeah, he is.
However, overall, the coverage does fall in line with, all along, I'm like, I don't understand why people don't go at this guy like another megastar who is being paid amongst the top 5 players in the league. There's an accountability typically associated with that, and this guy doesn't live in that world.
Right.
Wizards, bruh.
Right.
And every once in a while, Candace is like, does anyone care that this guy makes $50 million a year and we suck?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And everything needs to change around him. And for some reason, he's got like a direct burner phone to Ted anytime he wants.
He gets to decide who the head coach is, apparently.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Ted wrote a very long letter today, by the way.
Can't even get to it today.
I can't. It's 20 pages long.
I mean, here's to the Brad point, too, though. Like, everything you just mentioned on that is just so on brand with him that he needed his own hype man on the wherever he was
the
at.
Brad hype man.
Yeah.
But he'll never live up to that hype.
Correct.
Is the most amazing part of it.
It's
like Mike Tyson needed a hype man because he's Mike Tyson. And he's going to bring the goods.
But it's hard to quantify. This is the reason why we loved John and hated Brad.
I never hated Brad. I
did though.
As it went along, it was so obvious who the alpha truly was.
That's what I think. That's what I'm getting at here. Like, there's a reason why we loved Gilbert Arenas here because he was an alpha and he was a dog and he'd go after you. And we knew the problems that he had. And there were a lot of problems that he had by the end of it. But we just knew, all right, we know what you're giving us every single night. We know why we love Karan and we know why we love Antoine.
Karan was a monster too.
You're going to leave it all out there, right?
Karan was a monster
and
too.
like whatever your flaws are, we can deal with it because you're embracing whatever you got out there. You're going to play your ass off. And John was just like that. And we knew John couldn't shoot a jumper to save his life at all. Every single year. But we knew he was fast as hell, was going to play defense, like I said. And then there was Brad. And Brad just didn't bring anything.
Right.
He would score, but it was like...
There's no leadership.
The hoops... The people in this town know hoops. And they know you just filling up the stat sheet is not enough.
That's right.
And I think that's what it all came down to.
Who do you make better on the team?
Nobody.
Name one person you made better on the team.
Correct. Exactly right. And that's where I think the
Denny
disconnect was.
has grown exponentially on a crappy team
right.
without you here.
Correct. Exactly. And I think that's where what I'm getting at here with Brad. And I think that's where you say you don't hate Brad. I hate Brad in like a different way than a hater, so to speak, though. I hate Brad because of all the reasons you just laid out. He somehow had all of this power in the organization.
It made no sense.
And yes,
that's
correct.
why I made fun of it for so long. It makes no sense to give him that power.
Right.
I think he's a very good player. Just treat him like a very good player, not like he's like the dictator of the organization.
This is the best way to put it, I think. It just popped in my head. They were treating Brad like he was Ovechkin.
Yes.
Ovechkin's the greatest goal scorer of a generation.
They were treating Brad like he was LeBron.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It was infuriating to watch because I'm like, y'all are watching the same games, right?
Right.
That guy's a Hall of Famer. Your guy isn't.
Yes.
Your guy doesn't elevate your franchise. Your guy doesn't make everybody better. You guys don't even make the playoffs when he's the primary star. What more do you need to see?
That's right. Exactly.
Why don't you see that?
Yeah. I think that's why I think there's just a different. It's layered, but there's a different layer to Brad because it's very. It's another one. It's very DC. It's very political.
Yeah.
Like you are in that position of power because you played that right, but you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, essentially.
Right. I mean, like, it was hard to, he was a good representative. He did a lot in the community. He is, by all accounts, a very good guy.
No, of course.
All of that factors into my, I like Brad, we all like Brad. But Brad should not be treated like Kevin Durant.
Right.
He's not.
That's right.
And I don't know why you do, and this is of your own making and your own fault, because you let him control way too much of it.
Yeah.
And he had zero accountability for it. Planted reporters. That's funny.
Suns, bruh.
I
want that shirt if Motrin makes it.
It's going to be amazing. Like, when Durant forces his way out, which I assume he will, and then if Booker does try to leave too, if they appease them and do this, he's going to be on the worst team in the league.
What a shame.
It's going to be funny.
Tax-free out there, so I mean.
32 points a game. He plays really well in those really bad teams.
He's going to shoot up the fantasy rankings.
It's going to be him, Neto.
We'll play Neto.
Yeah, Neto's
going to play zero defense.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the heart and soul of your team.
Yeah. He's going to really rally those troops out there in Phoenix.
Man.
Really rally them. Can't wait. Vogel's like, I'm out on this.
I'm good.
Yeah. All right, let me take a break. Bram Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.